Today, I want to talk about dysfunction, and that's going to be my message for today. Is going to be dysfunction, and the reason why I'm talking about dysfunction is because I was in church and they had the youth, young people worshiping and praising God. And one thing I love about the young people is when they praise and worship God, they do it sincerely. They do it from their heart. There's no pretending, because they're young and they learning about God, and it's new to them. It's open to them. And it's a joy, God gets pleasure when he sees the young people praising him. And it's so important that, we appreciate our youth, especially when they worshiping God and praising God, because, that is our future. And so we need to teach them. So when they sit up here and do something like that, it just excites me. But they was talking about dysfunction in their praise and worship. And Pastor Chauncey had talked about a kite. And I'm going to break this down because I have two stories to tell about this dysfunction. One is going to be about Peter, and the other one's going to be about a story that happened with a family and how dysfunction wound up breaking up destroying the whole family. People, we don't realize that this dysfunction is something that we all deal with. In your life, in your family, your friends, your marriage, your relationships, there's always somebody there that's going to be dysfunctional. Okay, we have dysfunctional brothers and sisters. We have dysfunctional mates. We have dysfunctional friends, And the problem is we keep thinking that since they dysfunctional and we're a little bit dysfunctional, that it's okay to be dysfunctional and we just make it work because we're all dysfunctional together. The problem is that's not really true. Because what you don't realize is dysfunctional really hinders you from what God wants you to do. It hinders you from where God is trying to take you to. Dysfunctional in a relationship, it could be abuse. Okay, that's dysfunctional. It can be dealing with family and they always cursing you out and telling you off and low grading you and putting you down. That can be family. That's dysfunctional. Being in a marriage where they talk bad to you or treat you bad or don't talk right to you, don't do anything with you or don't take you nowhere and always down on you, for your weight or for who you are, for the clothes you dress, all kinds of stuff. Dysfunctional. This is all dysfunctional. There's all kinds of dysfunctional when it comes to life. The problem is we accept it and we move on with it. We think that it's, since people in situations dysfunctional, that it's okay for it to be that way. And God is saying that's furthest from the truth, because dysfunctional keeps you down and it holds you back from what God has for you. And I'm going to break this down in a couple of things and explain the reason why. When Peter got put in jail for something that he didn't do, okay, and remember, he went to jail. Pharaoh put him in jail for something that he didn't do because Pharaoh's wife told a lie on him, and they put him in jail and they put chains on him and everything else and locked him up under the dungeon. The problem was Peter got comfortable in being in the dungeon. See, and he just laid there and he just got comfortable. He didn't remember that what his assignment was with God, okay? Or let's say he kind of let it slip by. And he started getting comfortable on his surroundings. See, because the gods in them told Peter that, as long as he stick with them, okay, that he would live. And how many people that we know that we stick with, that we know we have no business sticking with, okay? And we get comfortable sticking with them and they dysfunctional and they keep saying, you can't make it unless you have me in your life. And you can't do this unless you have me in your life, or I'm doing this for you. All this is dysfunctional, okay? And this is what God is saying. And it's surprising because God had to literally send an angel down to slap Peter to make him get up. How many of us God has to slap? Because I know he slapped me a couple of times, okay? And I know I'm pretty sure there's a whole bunch of other people he done slapped. It don't have to be a physical slap. It could be some word. It could be something that happens in your life that light bulb goes off. That's that could be a slap. And how many times has God sit up here and did that to us and had to wake us up or make us jump up and whatnot to sit up here and do what he wants us to do? And see, that's what happened with Peter. When the angel slapped Peter, he got up And when he got up, his chains started to fall off. And God is saying the same thing with us. See, when we serve a God that moves, God don't hold still. He's a moving God. He's a revolving God. He's telling you don't get comfortable where you are because you don't never know when he's going to move you. And see, that's what happened with Peter. He got comfortable where he was, and God was ready to move him. So he had to send an angel to slap him to wake him to get him to move. And when he moved, his chain started falling off. And God is saying the same thing with us. God says, when you move, the chains that's binding you down, he will start removing those chains. Those chains will start falling off you. But you got to get up. You can't just sit there and think that the chains are going to come off by themselves. You got to get up when God is trying to remove chains. You can't sit there and be bounded and think that God is going to do everything and you don't do anything. You have to get up and stand up and whatnot for those chains to be moved. Another thing Peter did was he started walking towards the gates, the doors that had him locked in, the bars that had him locked in. And as he was walking through those gates, all of them start opening up. Just opening up on themselves. And God keeps saying the same thing when it comes to us. You can't sit up here and get God what you want from God when you won't get up and when you won't walk towards the door that God is trying to open for you. See, we always want God to do for us, but we don't want to sit up here and go after pursue what God wants us to do. When you want to break those chains, you got to get up for those chains to fall off you. When you want to get the things that want God to open up doors for you, you got to go to the door and walk through the door for God can unlock the door and open those doors for you. But yet and still we want to sit up here and wait for God to do everything, and we don't want to do anything ourselves. And God is saying that's not the way it works. You have to get up and you have to walk towards your destiny. You have to walk towards those doors for God can unlock those doors and break those chains. And see, that's what Peter had to do. And when he did it and whatnot, that's when everything started falling into play. But if he would have just laid there and slept and stayed with everything, and mind you, because he got comfortable because the gods told him as long as he's with them, he didn't have to worry about anything. He's still alive. Well, do you put your trust in man or do you put your trust in God? Do you honestly think if God let you go in a situation like that God is going to let you die? You remember the 3 Hebrew brothers that went into the fire? God didn't take them out of the fire or nothing. What he did was Jesus went inside there with them in the fire. Okay, the fire never deceased, but he went in there with them with the fire. The 3 Hebrew boys, he went in there with the fire, and that's why they said when they looked in there, they seen 4 instead of 3. And they came out unblemished. They came out without a scratch. They came out with unburned. Why? Because God was with them. Okay. God never said that you wouldn't go through something, but he said that's what he said. He said he'll bring you through. He was with them through the fire. He was with Peter when Peter was in the dungeon and the chain started falling off and the door started opening up. And God is saying the same thing with us. But as long as you stay in dysfunction, God can't take you to your next destiny. And I'm going to break this down. Dysfunctional is like flying a kite. Okay. When you fly a kite and you hold on to the string, and most of us have flown kites and went to the beach and ran the beach on the beach or walked in the street and whatnot, flying a kite, and the wind holds the kite up in the air, and as long as you holding that string, you guiding that kite. You say how high it goes, what direction it goes in, everything else and whatnot, because you're holding it. So what you're doing is you're limited to what it can really do. But once that string breaks, okay, that kite is going to go to a whole different height than you can ever imagine. It's going to soar so high that you might not be able to see it. It's going to go somewhere where you're going to lose sight of it because it's going to go in its own direction. And God is saying the same thing when it comes to us about dysfunction. See, when you have dysfunction with your family, friends, mate, husband, wife, or whatever the case may be, they're holding a string on you. Okay. And that string is keeping you from elevating to where God wants you to go. All right. And as long as that dysfunction is holding you, God can't take you to a different level. Okay. You can't soar the way God wants you to soar. See, God wants us to fly like an eagle, but yet and still we keep flying like pigeons, because what a pigeon does, it goes but so high and it returns back to its coop. It stays below the radar. But an eagle soars high, so high and whatnot you can barely see it. And God made us eagles. He didn't make us pigeons, but yet and still we keep operating like pigeons instead of eagles. And that's what dysfunction is. Dysfunction is something that has a hold on you, has a grasp on you. And when you're in an abusive relationship, that's dysfunction. When you dealing with family that's cursing you out and telling you off and using, abusing you, that's dysfunctional. When you're in a friendship and whatnot, they keep using you and they think that they keep telling you the only person that they got that's a friend, that's dysfunctional. All this stuff is dysfunctional. And God is trying to take us to a different level. You know, I told a story about just now about Peter, about the dysfunction. I'm going to go into part 2 here because I want to tell a story about a family with dysfunction and whatnot and how dysfunction destroyed that family, okay, and how it can destroy our family, because it's so important that we need to know what exactly dysfunction is so we can get out of it and move to a different level and where God is trying to take us. So I'm going to a second part on this with this dysfunction.